Look in the sky. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. I can see it in your eyes. Know you look scared, baby, don't be scared, it's alright. Just look at the size. There's more of us than we with them, so we all fight. Look at the clothes. All of us something like a ghost, rockin' all white. More of us than we with them, damn. Baby girl, you can be a friend. Come on, we gon' fight until the end. Baby, don't fold, don't bend. Put too much trouble on you. Hope one day you see it too. Got so much trouble on you. Hope one day we'll make the skies. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. I can see it in your eyes. Know you look scared, baby, don't be scared, it's alright. So look at the size. There's more of us than there be with them, so we all fight. Look at the clothes. Pull up with something like a ghost, rockin' all white.
Hi, how are you guys doing? My name is Ezra Blair.
And my name is Naomi Blair.
And we are St. Louis representation of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. Today we have a lesson about adulting.
Yeah, very
Adulting,
interesting
right?
and trendy topic.
Trendy word.
Yeah.
But still very relevant. As we know, right, in Israelite culture, you know, the culture is there throughout a entire individual's lifetime, right? And for generations to come. But the Israelite culture that we have and that we follow is one that supports its individuals throughout their journey, right? And we know we have our cycle feasts that represent kind of those transitions. And of course we know that when our children are born, the men are circumcised, offered up, named, name day. And so all that is important of the culture, right? All that is important of building strong Israelite children, and strong Israelite children become strong Israelite youth, which become strong Israelite adults.
Exactly.
So what we want to talk about is the transition between that youth and that adult.
Yeah.
What does that look like in the scriptures?
And even in our own lives.
And
Because,
exactly.
it's very relevant to us. I'm 22.
I'm 21.
Exactly. We're about to graduate college. We're about to go off into the world and become our own beings and be who we're meant to be. Like, all of that is, like, starting now in our third cycle. And it's very, very exciting. There's tons of things to learn. And it's so helpful to have the text of the Bible and, our family around us to help support us, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of take a look at some of the individuals throughout the scriptures as they face kind of these moments of transition, and big steps of independence. That's kind of what we're gonna be analyzing, and as you said, apply to our own lives, and take a look at what we see and see how we can use that information for ourselves.
Build our little toolkit to be full adults.
Right.
And that's what the Bible is for.
Right.
Like you said, in each stage of your life, there's not a story really that isn't relatable to the Bible in anyone's life that you can't go in the Bible and see and find things to learn about and tools to really use in here too, from people in the Bible, from our own ancestors. So
yeah, exactly. So it's all important.
Yeah.
So I said we dive into it.
Yeah, we could dive right in. We're gonna start.
So when we dive in, we're going to take a look at a story of a man who is, I guess, one of the starting of all this whole culture that we have. We're going to take a look at the story of Abram. Yep, Abram transitioning into Abraham as we know him, and kind of what that looked like for him, because we know that in order for him to become Abraham and to be the father of this nation, he went through his own transition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So let's dive in.
Yep.
Where are we going to take a look?
Genesis 12.
Genesis 12.
Yeah.
All right.
And I will just start reading.
Genesis 12,
Yes.
verse
Like
1.
1 to, one. Yeah, start at 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and to the land of Canaan they came. So, right away it starts off with instructions.
Right.
Yes.
So as we see Abram, we know the culture that Abram grew up in and understands. It's not Israelite culture, right? It's not of the God of Israel.
Yeah.
And so we know that the God at the time, he speaks to Abram and he tells him to go. He tells him to leave.
Yeah, and he leaves his father's house, which is something very familiar. It's his home. He's been there for 75 years, presumably, and he has to literally just take a leap of faith in the God of Israel and in the family that he took with him. And there's something to learn in that, even as a 75-year-old man, as a 22-year-old person, and even other young people out there can learn something from that as they are transitioning and leaving home too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one thing to note about this story of Abraham that hopefully we all understand so well, given its importance, is the fact that, even though this transition for Abram happened within 6 verses, right? This is definitely probably just not a simple, easy, okay, let's go, right?
Yeah.
It's not that simple, right? I mean, it says he was 75 years old when he left, so, he's already living a life that he understands, a life that he's comfortable with, and he has a wife, he has family, so he has a life, right? He has a life, and he already has a culture, right? But as we know, in transitional stages, like, there's no growth in comfort, right? There's no growth in comfort. So this decision was probably a very uncomfortable decision, right? One that, this is new. This is not something I'm used to. And who is this God talking to me, telling me to do something completely different than what I've been doing for 75 years, right? And so even though he was at that age, as you said, 75, that transition can happen at any age, right? I know for a lot of us it happens in our 20s nowadays, but there's a big range of your age range in which you might have moments of transition or moments where you need to kind of step into another sense of independence, or maybe even sidetrack a bit from what you're doing. And as we know, people come into the nation at all sorts of ages, right? It's not just all in 15, 20, like some people, you can come in at any age and still make that big leap for yourself towards this great nation.
I think with whatever age you are, the concept of leaving home can be very daunting. I know for me, I technically left home, but I'm there every weekend, and I live like 2 blocks away from my parents, so it's not like all the way there. But even that was a struggle, to just be in a house with me and my sister. And even you speak about, like, you literally lived on your own for a little bit, even though you were kind of close here to everyone, that it's important to kind of connect yourself, at least for me, to connect myself, whether it's talking on the phone or having prayer programs together, stuff like that, so you always feel connected. But I think just the concept of leaving home is very daunting and scary, no matter what age you are.
And even in a more metaphorical sense, the idea of taking that leap, right? As we know, those moments can happen those moments are going to happen in our lives. There's going to be moments in our lives where we come across something that basically tells us to go and do something that we're not used to doing or we're not comfortable doing, but we know it's the right decision, and our chest is beating that it's the right decision, and we need to take that step. But it's about taking that step of faith, because that's where the growth happens.
And faith is a huge thing, I think, even in personal life, because again, taking this and applying it to our own lives, it does take a huge leap of faith. To be a full adult, to trust yourself, your own mind, your own courage, and being brave in that, and also trusting the God of Israel. And it's very it soothes a lot of my fears, knowing that I can do that too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, for all the people watching and listening at home out there, you guys definitely have moments, no matter what your age is, like put the 7s in the 5s if you feel like you're still growing, you're still learning every day, and you still have that zeal to continue to better yourself.
And even, I don't know, even tell us what it was like when you first left home. Because that's probably a very daunting. A lot of things for other people to learn there too. So, and with leaving home, I think so. This was a story of Abraham, who had to leave home in order to become Abraham, and in order to have his son Isaac and Jacob and all of the family of Israel,
the lineage that we know today. It all started with this first step. This
leap of faith to leave home, and. With talking about Abraham, there's also, Isaac, and there's also Jacob, who left home in a different way and for a different reason, but we can still learn a lot from him as well.
Okay.
So we can go to Jacob.
We'll just dive into Jacob.
Yeah. We're going to Genesis 28.
Okay.
So just a little background on Jacob. So we're fast forwarding in Jacob's life. Of course,
we know the lineage was Abraham, and then Abraham's son was Isaac, and Isaac's son is Jacob.
So Abraham is his grandfather.
Yes.
And we have Jacob here, and just a little background. We're fast forwarding a little bit in Jacob's life, but we know that Jacob is the younger son. So Isaac had 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau was supposed to get the blessings that you bestow generation upon generation, the covenant with the God of Israel, all of that. It's the blessings that go down. Esau was supposed to, as an older, son, is like tradition to receive that, but Jacob's mom and Rebecca received the instructions that Jacob should be the one to receive those blessings, and he did. And this is after that happens, and this is the beginning of when Jacob kind of leaves home, and we find out why he does that too. So this is Genesis 28. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padanaram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the brothers of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. And give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padanaram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. So we get these instructions, and just like Abraham's story, well, not just like, but similar to Abraham's story, where he had instructions to leave, while that was the God of Israel. This is Isaac telling Jacob, his dad telling him to leave and go to this land, which you do not know, but you're going for your own betterment.
Right, for your own growth.
Yes.
And I think, it's important. Also, just to note, at this time, we also know that technically our God of Israel that we know, his name isn't God of Israel yet, it's God Almighty. But this is, I guess, these are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That lineage is the creation of these are the people who have kind of built the foundation of why we call him God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. So these are very important people in our culture as Israelites. Going to keep reading. So as you said, Isaac is instructing Jacob to go and get a wife into another land.
Right, exactly. And we can skip down a little bit to 10. So verse 10. So Genesis 28, verse 10. And this is when Jacob is at Bethel. So he's left home. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted up a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascended and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And in thee, in thy seed, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. So this is a big dream.
It's a big dream.
Yes.
It's a big message as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And to relate it to this idea of adulting and this idea of growth, this is the type of message that is so important for a young person to hear, but also understand, because this is where your confidence comes from, right? This is what gives you the faith to go out there and do what you have to do.
Do
right?
whatever.
Do whatever you have to do, because the God of Israel is speaking to Jacob right now, telling him that he is going to be with him. Yes.
This is Jacob's personal relationship with the God of Abraham and Isaac at this time. And it's significant because he was the God of Abraham, his grandfather, the God of Isaac, his father, and now he's becoming the God of Jacob, and this specific relationship with him, singularly, not just through his grandfather.
Right, so we see Jacob, after Jacob, as we know, he gets the blessings from Isaac, and we know the story about Jacob and Esau and how that happened. But it's important also for Jacob not just to receive the blessings from his, from, as you said, from his parents and from his grandparents, to receive what they tell him and what they say to him and the blessings that they bestow down upon him, but also for Jacob to, as you said, develop his own relationship. Like that's the next step in that development as a Israelite young person.
Right.
And taking your own, the word, I think you've used the word agency before. Have agency in your life to develop your own relationship with the God of Israel. To have that,
That's so powerful once you realize your own agency. Like, it's not just through being in the household with your parents. It's not just through going on Sabbaths and moons with our family, or even watching lessons on Saturday. It's your own personal relationship with the God of Israel and with our culture. And once you have established that, you are well on your way to becoming a well-rounded adult, a well-rounded Israelite adult. And that is so important once you realize that you have to have a personal relationship.
And I think even just to stress, like even in our own lives, I think that's something that has kind of been big for me growing up and me kind of going through my transitions, is that, being a part of RISE, which is a youth group here in the nation. RISE stands for Restoring Israelite Self-Awareness Through Education. Yes. Being a part of RISE and being a part of all the youth programs we have here, we really teach, the young people in the nation to how to apply, right? Yes, we have a culture and we have laws and statutes, but at the same time, like, how do we apply it to our lives, to our goals, to our careers, right? In order to do that, it requires that personal relationship, right? Which is so vital in, a young person's growth. Because having that dependency on the God of Israel and having that own relationship, that own give and take, is what gives you power and confidence to go out into the world and, accomplish things and go out, and take the world by storm, because the God of Israel is behind you.
And having that faith to do that, to go out on a ledge and just of life, and that transition from youth to adult and having your own relationship again is so important, and it can open so many doors for you once you realize your own power and own agency within yourself. So I think it's so important.
Very important.
Yeah. And that's what Jacob did. He found his own spiritual connection to the God of Israel, and he also did something a little bit more. So we can read on.
Okay.
So now we're at Genesis 28, verse 16. Keep going. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, "Surely the God is in this place, and I knew it not." And he was afraid and said, "How dreadful is this place! This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put for his pillows, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city was called Luz at first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that shall give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee.
So this is, as you said, him taking it further, because every relationship is two-sided, right? Relationships aren't one-sided, right? Relationships are one-sided maybe in the beginning, right? When you're a child and you don't know much, okay, that relationship's a little bit one-sided. There's just a unconditional love for that child.
His obedience, there's no question. It's just,
exactly. But as someone grows and matures, things are going to be asked of that child. And so every relationship, as things develop, there's always two sides to a relationship. And we always like to say that relationship is like a give and take relationship that we have with our Father, the God of Israel. And so we see here Jacob exercising that give and take relationship, literally right in words, right in front of us, how after the God of Israel says, "Look, I got you, I'm going to be there for you," Jacob immediately goes and says, "Everything that I have, I will give you a tenth of."
Wow.
Right? If you say you got me like you do, and you will protect me and be my God, and make sure that I have safe travels from here to on my journey, I can come back home, right? Through all of that, then I will surely give a tenth unto you, right? And that is a part of the relationship that we have with our God, right?
That's part of his own agency that you were talking about.
Exactly.
We're able to build our relationship, our personal relationship with God of Israel through our own agency, and learn more about our own personal give and takes, and what we can ask, and what also we are giving and sacrificing.
Exactly. And no one even and no one told them specifically to do it. There wasn't anybody there right there saying like, "Oh, this should be your response. You should say this," right? It was in Jacob to naturally understand how this relationship works, to understand how it works, and even to learn from his fathers,
I was just thinking
and his grandfather, as Abraham did a similar thing in his life,
building the whole altar. Exactly.
So a lot of and we see the passing down of the culture, and we see Jacob's understanding of that culture as he coming into him being an adult and being that independence, him using the culture. This is him actively using what he's learned from Abraham and Isaac, and to kind of build himself up as a young man, in order to make his own decisions and to understand kind of what he should do next. So it's a perfect example.
Is there anything else to say about this?
About Jacob?
I mean, there's one thing he does eventually, and you can definitely, his story is so good. There's so much in here. He goes and meets his wife, and
of course,
he gets two wives, Leah and Rachel.
We know about his children, the 12
tribes, right? But he eventually does go back home, which I think is also important, because there is a sense of when you leave home, you're not just disconnected. You're not disconnected from your parents. Not like you can never go back. There is a connection there. And he did go home, and because that was his home, but he had to grow, and he had to find his wife elsewhere. He had to, one, for his protection, but also so he can grow his own personal relationship and be his own man with his two wives, and come home as well too. So I think that's also important. Step in kind of his own adulting and his own manhood too.
And his journey. It's true. It's very true. So there's a lot in here, and
there's a lot.
I mean, but it's also vital that we understand it, because this is the foundation of everything that we do today.
Yeah.
So it's still relevant and it's still applicable to our lives.
Yeah.
And of course, we know, as you said, the 12 tribes are birthed because of Jacob.
Yeah.
And the 12 tribes is, what leads to us here today.
Yeah,
So.
and this was a good way to become an adult. Like Jacob did a very good. It's a great example, and I think it's also helpful to look up the flip side, the reverse, possibly.
So not everyone's story ended up perfect.
Exactly,
of course,
exactly. So we can go to
look at
Luke 15.
Okay.
Yeah, and this actually is probably, you've heard it before. It's a parable. And there's very iterations of it, but it's commonly referred to, especially in the Christian place, as the prodigal son. But it's a parable that Jesus says, and let me just get to it.
It's pretty far from Genesis.
Yeah. Luke 15, okay. All right. So let's give context and then we'll just go straight into it. You're very far.
I'm pretty far.
Yeah.
I'm almost there, guys. Bear with me.
Again, so this is also, it's a story that we know well, the prodigal son, as what is commonly referred to as, but it is a parable, and so it's dislike the stories of Abraham, like we went through before, and Jacob, because those are actual stories that real people went through, but I think there's still something to learn from this parable, and there's many meanings and kind of placements that you can put on it, but we're talking about specifically as an individual with this parable too. So let's read a little bit of so the context here is that, and you can read the entire chapter. There's a lot of parables in this chapter, Luke chapter 15, that kind of say the same thing. The something about, leaving home and coming back. But this is a parable that Jesus was talking about to the Pharisees and scribes. They're talking about the man that received sinners and eateth with them. So we're talking about men who sin. But let's go to verse 11. And again, so like I said, this can have very many meanings, but this we're going to take it kind of a verse by verse and kind of apply it to what we're talking about today.
Okay.
Do you want to read?
Sure.
Cool.
All right, verse 11. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after the younger son gathered all together, and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So before we even finishing out, just the story as far as what's happening. So we see there's a man who has 2 sons, and the younger son basically goes up to his dad, his father, and he says, give me my inheritance. Give me the portion that I have rights to. Yep. Because I'm about to go out and live my life, and I want to, I just want to go out there I want to go independently all by myself. And be independent. Yeah. Exactly.
But I think it's...
And so it says, and not many days after, he immediately begins to waste the substance that his father has given him to go live his life with. Yeah. And then next thing you know, there's a famine, and before he knows it, he's with desolate. The pigs. Yeah. He's desolate and not doing very well, and no man was giving him things, right? Yep. So he's not doing so well.
Yeah, not at all.
Right.
Yes.
Basically begging just to, to survive.
Yes. So this is, again, so we talked about people who left home and kind of did it the right way, following instructions, but this is kind of the other side of that, where he left home, and he's asking for his inheritance, and isn't inheritance something you get after your dad dies, So maybe
Sometimes.
he's getting it.
I mean, it can happen in this way as
Right,
well,
right.
in which someone takes it on their journey.
Yeah, but maybe he's getting a little bit too early.
But he definitely asked for it earlier than...
Yeah, he's getting it too early. He doesn't really know what to do with it, because we see, he loses it very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He left home too early. He's doing it kind of all wrong. But in this case, he's also wanting to go back home because he failed,
Yeah.
That he failed. He didn't succeed in trying to be more independent.
Right. So he tried to jump the gun.
Yeah. Too early, yeah.
Where were we? 18.
Yeah. 20.
No, yeah, 20, you're right. No, 19. No, you're right, 20.
Okay.
Let's just start at 18.
Yeah.
I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So he says, so that's his plan. His plan is to go to his dad, and he doesn't expect his dad to have really much sympathy for him. Mm-hmm. And he says, when I go, I'm going to tell him that I'm not worthy to be your son, but can you at least just hire me as a servant? Right? That's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So, and he arose, and he came to his father, but when he was yet a great way off, so this is him now, he's actually about to approach his dad, and this is kind of him in the distance. His father saw him and had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Right? Just like how we thought. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry.
So he thought that his father wouldn't welcome him as his son again. If anything, a servant. But he kissed him on the neck and hugged him and was merry and got him a robe and food. And
yeah. So as we know, the parable is a metaphor for Israel at the time, going back to our father, how our father would be so grateful no matter what we've been through or how much we've sinned or whatever has been going on, that going back to him is always the answer.
Yeah.
And I think applying that, as you said, to the topic of today, as far as being young and kind of chasing that independence, I think you can apply it on that level as well.
Yep.
As far as a young person, not everything is going to work out.
Yeah.
Not everything is like, you have that zeal to go and live your life and to go, conquer everything. But, sometimes you get bruised up and you get sent back home.
Yeah, you still have a lot to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a lot to learn, right? And that's the thing about, as Israelites and this culture, is that's why we value our elders and we value family and the the leadership and the mentorship that we get from our elders and from our family members, because it's a place not just of advising, but it's also home, right? Home is what builds us, right? Home is our foundation.
Yeah.
So when you go out there and conquer and things don't always work out, you always know that you have home to come back to.
Yeah. Even speaking of the mentorship that people provide in Israel, it's also bringing back Arise a little bit, because that is sort of yes, we are youth leaders, but we have to be built into youth leaders through mentorship and the leaders that we have, the adult that's already gone through all the phases in life that we have gone through, that help us through, and even whether it's him like finances or just learning this our strengths and weaknesses and what we can do in the world, and what tools we can use to better prepare us for the world. That's also useful. That's what Rise does too in Israel. So we're so thankful to have that.
Yeah.
But he obviously didn't feel that was necessary when he was going out into the world.
Right.
Yeah, which was his downfall.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think even another way to kind of analyze this story is also from the perspective of just, financial literacy and understanding how to be financially stable.
Yeah.
That's also a big part of something to learn. Even though, that may not be exactly like the key message, but I think that's also something to note, especially in times where, you're not sure exactly how to spend and use money and how to budget. And one of the big reasons why in this parable, why this man fails is because of the fact that he was not wise with how he spent, was not wise with how he, and I think even in today's age, that is very important to understand how to be financially stable, especially as young people. When you go out there into the world, you can't just be doing whatever. You have to make sure you have a set things that you need to make sure that you have money for.
Yeah.
Right? Place to live, things to eat, that's like a requirement. So,
I think it's when you first start the first job, or even like him where it's inheritance, you get money from your parents, maybe when you're going off to college, or
see a check bigger than you've seen before.
Yeah, or a refund check, something. You want to buy something with it, but I think the instinct should be to save it and to budget with it, and make it useful, not just for momentary pleasure. As a young person, it's
and
very
it's easy
tempting
to fall into the momentary pleasure as a young person, of course.
Yeah, but I think it's important, and as we learned from him, he lost it all and became poor and had to beg, and we don't want that.
And had to go back.
Yeah, exactly. So we can learn from that and be mindful with our money. I think it's also a question to ask. Like, I know, like, we see that he failed, but you think, I don't know, like, if he didn't fail, would he have gone home? Like, yes, it kind of ended in a good way, but I think it's also like it's still a story of like what not to do. Because he went home because he failed, and we don't want this to be the story that happens to us. Yes, it's good to know that we have people to lean on, and Israel, and our family and parents or guardians, whoever raised you up and mentored you, but it's good to know you have that to come back to, but also he had his failures. He failed in this, and it's something to learn from too. So anything else you want to talk about the prodigal son? That's what's most commonly referred to as, but this parable.
No, I just think once again it's relevant. It's an example of the leaving of home, the claiming of independence that we're discussing today. And I think, it is important that we understand who we are, who we come from. So even when we go out into the world, we go out representing our home. We go out representing, like, do you know who my father is? Right? That should be kind of behind us in all our decisions and everything that we do. And as we said, that's where our confidence lies. Right? That's where our confidence lies. Yeah. And he got to the point where he said, I'm not worthy to be, my father's son. Yeah. And he's kind of losing the identity of who he was and who he used to be in that home. So that's something we kind of, you don't want to do. You have to always understand that the God of Israel is our Father. Yeah. You can't
go wrong with him.
Exactly. You can't go wrong with him. And, put your trust in him, Yeah. He's there for you. He's there.
Yep. So these are examples, whether it's what not to do or what to do, right? Like with Jacob and Abraham, of how to leave home the right way. I think it's important also. Again, I think that phase of leaving home, whether it's for college, and even then when you go to college, it's not necessarily, you might still be leaning on your parents for monetary or just for monetary things, or you might be calling them like every day, every weekend, like I did when I first went to college, but you're still like not physically home. And that's the beginning of your independence. And even after college, you're probably maybe even moving farther away, or you're not as dependent on your parents as much. And that's kind of what we're about to kind of get into. And so it's a scary thing, but it's nice that we go back into the Bible and look at these tools that Abraham and Jacob has given us as tools in order to live that becoming a better adult and how to leave home properly.
Yep.
But once you leave home, it's kind of then like, how do you live that? And I think a perfect story to kind of tell us and give us a tool for that would be the story of Caleb and Joshua. So we can head to Numbers 13.
All right.
Going back and forth into the Bible. And I think it's also important to realize that all of these are on both sides of the Bible, both things that we can learn all throughout the entire Bible. So, Numbers 13. And in Numbers 13, we are, a little bit of context, we are in the wilderness about to go to Canaan, go to the land that we left Egypt for, go to the land that the God of Israel bestowed upon Abraham and his seed and all of Israel.
Right, so this is after Israel is led out of Egypt. Right? Yeah. So this is after Egypt. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of that period where we are trying to build a nation. Mm-hmm. And so the nation is in its very young stages. And so this is Israelites trying and going to scout the land out. Yeah. The land that we are supposed to take over for Israel. Yeah. Yeah.
So we can start at 17, verse 17.
Verse 17.
So Numbers 13, verse 17.
All right.
And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get you up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land and what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, wherein they be strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds, and what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not. And be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men come to Hamath.
So basically, Moses is taking the men and the people to go, and they're sending them down to scout out the land, because before you just attack a nation or take it over, you want to see what you're dealing with first, right?
And in Canaan Israel hasn't been in Canaan for a while now, because they were enslaved in Egypt, with Joseph and after Jacob and everything. But they're still in Egypt, and then they're coming back to, it's their land, but there are people in that land that have taken up that land. Right. It wasn't just left empty and bare. So they have to go see what it's about, what can we do.
To get it back.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came unto the brook of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between two upon a staff, and they brought it of pomegranate and of the figs. The place was called brook Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. Right. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them and said, We came unto the land whither thou sent us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it.
So the land is fruitful.
Yes. And they told him and said, Nevertheless, this verse 28, nevertheless the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwelt in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. So saying that it's fruitful, but there's people here. There's strong people. There's many people. There's even a wall here. So these are there's people here.
So they've set up shop.
Yes, and these men that went to spy are feeling probably a little bit threatened, a little bit scared. Like these are like really strong people here. Like, can we actually do this? Maybe. Yeah,
right. But as they also know, but this is also a place where, I mean, it's flowing with milk and honey.
Yeah,
this is a place that's gonna be fruitful. Our crops are gonna grow well here. This is gonna be good for us.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be something.
It's our land.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they checked that box. So that box is checked.
Yeah.
But then the other box of like, okay, well, who's there right now?
Yeah.
Who do we got to take it from? That's a different situation.
Yeah, exactly. So verse 30. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men that went up with him said, "We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, "The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come out of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers." And so we were in their sight.
So if you look at that, right, you see
they're scared.
Caleb.
Oh,
yeah. No, they're scared,
yeah.
but we see like Caleb saying that it's possible.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's go get it.
These
Okay.
young men.
Oh, like he didn't even need to hear the second part. He said, "Oh, okay. You said like it's flowing with milk and honey. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. It's our land. Let's just go." Yeah.
So he's ready, right? He has the zeal. But then all of the other men, you know, as you said, and it describes the report as they have described the land as an evil report.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a report that like the God of Israel doesn't like hear this type of report. This is not the type of report that, because he doesn't want us to think like that.
Yeah,
that's not the way we're supposed to be thinking on such a physical level.
Yeah.
They all have this fear inside of them that they aren't able to accomplish this. Like, oh no, the land is full of giants, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like a bunch of NBA players. Like, yeah, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, they're too big. But it's like, well, I mean, but then we also have the other side. But Caleb's like, man, I don't care.
Let's do this.
About none of that. Let's go get it.
Yep. No doubt. So continuing on to Numbers 14. Would you like to read?
Sure. Numbers 14. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, and the whole congregation said unto them, Would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we had died in this wilderness? And wherefore hath the Lord brought us unto this land, to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? Wow. So once again, we see the repetition of these horrible, horrible people that is our ancestors.
Yes.
And we see that their fear was so great that not only did they cry all night,
they doubted.
but they doubted even God's ability.
Yes.
They saw death around the corner. Right. And they assumed, and they got angry, and now they're talking against Moses, the man that led them through the waters.
Did they not see the sea open and walk on dry land?
The man that led them through the waters.
Exactly.
They're doubting him, saying that they have basically, the same way they said, you led us to the water to die, and that worked out. Now they're saying, okay, you led us all the way to Canaan to die.
Yes.
And apparently they don't learn anything.
They don't learn.
But that is the situation we're dealing with. So now we're dealing with Israel kind of being not good in the eyes of Moses and in the eyes of our God.
Yes, but if we keep reading, there are people.
Right. So let's keep going.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's
going.
the majority state of the nation right now.
Yeah.
Right. That's the majority state of the nation, of the congregation.
Yes. So 5.
No, 4.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, verse 4. And they said one to another, Let us make a captain, and let us return into Egypt. Horrible. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all of the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land, and give it us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not.
Wow.
So, we have a whole bunch of men being sent to this land.
Yeah.
And we have, out of everybody that went, all of the congregation is now fearful based off the report back.
Yeah.
But we have two men, Joshua and Caleb, who their mindset is, are you guys kidding me?
These two young men.
We need to go and we need to do this now.
Yes.
He's saying, because they said, fear them not, because the Lord is with us.
Yes.
Because the Lord is with us.
Yep. They are bread for us.
Right.
Like, what are you guys thinking?
It's like, are you kidding me? Did you not see the land?
Exactly.
This is clearly the land we need to be in.
Our land. Let's
it's our
go.
land. And I think, and I'm not going to, it's, of course, it's always easier said than done.
Yeah.
Right, to judge our ancestors for their thoughts. Because it is very real. Like, there is, when you go out into the world, and the world is scary, right? The world is not all sunshine and rainbows, right? It's not easy to navigate. No one said it was going to be easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy. So their fear, yes, like there is a natural fear of any sort of anything that threatens your life, your family, your kids, of course. But as we know, I mean, time and time again,
blessed, like they have been blessed.
Yes,
it's an insult not to keep the faith.
Exactly,
it's an insult not to keep going. Like Caleb and Joshua, let's just do this.
Yeah,
they literally saw the sea open. You know, they literally saw Pharaoh's army drown, and they were taken out of captivity, and they still were like, I don't believe you.
They don't believe it.
I don't believe you.
You don't think that all this has been happening for a reason?
Yes. Yeah.
But mind you, that is the way they reacted. Yeah. And mind you, that is a natural human reaction. Yes. Fear is a natural human reaction to anything that is threatening, of course. But we also know, right, that relationship that we have with our God, like we don't put our trust in him for no reason, right? We don't put our trust in him just to say we're putting our trust in him, but we really just have our own thoughts and we don't mind that. Like, no, like it's important that when we say we put our trust in him, that like, okay, we'll follow that up with action. Yeah, and show me.
And when you're fearful in life and when you are doubting yourself, this is when it really counts. This is when it really matters. Comes into fruition. Right. Yes, you pray and there's that connection, but when you really, really need the God of Israel and he comes through for you, you always remember that. So when you are doubting yourself, you can always be like, okay, let me just pray. Let me just go on this program. Let me just connect with my brethren and let me just, get this done. Don't have the faith. Do not fear the world, whatever tasks that you have to do. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And we probably won't keep going. Yeah, but as we know, the story goes that God of Israel gets very, very angry with this report and gets very angry with how the congregation is reacting.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Very angry. Wants to kill them all.
Yes.
Angry.
But the purpose of this is to kind of show that you gotta just have faith. You just gotta keep going. You just gotta keep chugging along no matter what life throws you, because we know, the God of Israel has your back. Right. Your brethren has your back. Your family and this culture is surrounding you for a reason. If you grew up in this culture, then you especially should have the faith. But even if you're new to it, count your blessings and just stay on that straight and narrow, especially during this hard turmoil of going into adulthood and leaving home or becoming more independent. It's when it's most important. Yeah. When you're shaping your own life. Yeah. Yeah.
And we see that with Joshua and Caleb having the right conclusions with everything that they've gone through in their life. And we see them applying this idea of adulting, understanding kind of like when it's necessary to take that step, that leap. that leap of, and like they like no one else was on their side.
Yeah.
And the whole congregation.
No
one else was on their side that this is the right move. But it took the courage of these men, Caleb and Joshua, in order for them to understand, like, no, like, we know what we have to do, and we need to go do this.
Right. And so important when in life, when you are facing challenges, like we said before, to just go to the God of Israel and pray and seek help and read about people like Joshua and Caleb, It's also important to surround yourself with people that will help you, such as your peers that you can trust, your family, and especially even mentors too.
Yeah.
Like people that have guided you since you were young. Like just because you're leaving home and becoming independent doesn't mean you cut off your mentors. You're still going to be with them, and it's so important to listen to them too. Yeah. And that's what's also important in this next story that we're about to tell you guys. More tools to add to your toolbox. More things to feed on as you're becoming more of an adult. And so we're going to go to 1 Kings 12.
Okay.
Okay.
1 Kings 12.
Yeah. And this is a story of
Rehoboam.
Rehoboam. Yes. Yeah. This is the Solomon's son. And this is
so this is once again after Solomon's reign.
Yes.
Right. And this is, as you said, his son coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up as the big dog, right?
Yes.
So now he's going to be the next king of Israel.
Yeah.
And so, of course, as we know, he's young and new to this, right? So we'll see if he's true to this. All right.
And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were to come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Jeroboam the son
So
of...
he just got
this is the beginning.
Yeah, he just got put up to be the king.
Exactly. Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt. That they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous, now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed.
So, what's the first thing that happened?
He is going to make him king. They're going to make him king, It's the beginning of his reign. Hasn't even really started yet. But and
then right after that, we see the first thing that they ask of him.
Right.
The people. So now we have the congregation of Israel, and they're speaking unto him, as you said, newly elected king. Not elected, but you know what I mean. Newly, the new king.
Yeah.
And they're telling him that, look, your father was a very strict king.
Yeah.
And that he had a heavy
yoke.
They described it as a yoke, a heavy yoke on us. And so, as we know, this is taxes, right? He was very strict with how he charged the people with their business interactions.
Yeah. And they're asking him, to lighten that load.
To lighten the load.
Yeah.
So that's what they're asking of him. So like, look, your father was kind of harsh. Maybe you can chill out a bit on, Okay. And so then he said, all right, give me 3 days and I'll think on it. All right?
Yeah.
So.
And verse 6. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and he said, How do ye advise that I may enter this people? So this is the right thing to do.
Right.
He went to his mentors, people that he knew was with his father Solomon. They called him old men. A lot of times older men are wiser, full of wisdom. You go to them for knowledge because they have lived life. They have been through everything you've gone through. And of course his father trusted them, so as advisors and as mentors.
So That was his first instinct.
Yeah.
Which is a good instinct. So he basically asking the old man to help him and be like, okay, what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
What is your advice for me?
Yes. So verse 7. And they spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and will serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him.
So even before we get there, their advice was to be a servant unto the people.
Be good to them.
Right. Be a servant unto the people. Be good to them. Because if you do that, if they like you, then they will be your people forever.
Exactly.
That was their counsel towards him.
Yeah.
But as it says, he kind of, let's keep reading and we'll see kind of like what he decides to do.
And he said unto them, What counsel give ye, that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter.
And so this is, once again, he's seeking advice. So he seeked advice from the old man.
Yes.
From not one old man, but from the old men, right? Yeah. That were advisors of his father. And now he's seeking counsel of
his peers.
Right? So these are the people that he grew up with, as I said. He grew up with them. So they grew up together. They probably played all the time together. They interact with each other. So they've known each other young. So these are like his friends, his peers.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And verse 10. And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And now whereas my father did laid you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father has chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
So he decided to just... So the young man's advice was, man, stop being Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
And let them know you thought my father was mean.
Yeah.
I got,
Get
I
it
got
onto
another
me.
level of
Yes.
it
I am
up.
bigger and greater than my father.
Right. So their counsel was basically to be even more mean. And whatever your father was doing, I could just make it worse. That was their counsel.
The respectability just goes out the window.
Right.
Goes out the window.
And where were we? We were at
verse
11.
Yes.
No, 12.
12. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So when all of Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, What portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. To your tents, O Israel. Now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt into the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. And I'm just going to read these last two. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore Rehoboam made speed to get him to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day.
So look where that counsel landed. Right.
Yes.
And I think, I guess just to summarize kind of what happens is basically the people, they start, thinking, and like once again, there is a prophecy going on here. But besides that, just politically, we see that the people start to think, because of his response, they're like, man, to be honest, who even says that you should really even be king?
Exactly.
I mean, who says that the kings need to be, from Judah? How come what is Jesse's line just the line of kings?
Right.
Like, is this what we're doing?
Right.
So it just made them question the whole power system in general.
Yeah.
And that questioning led to like very big repercussions for the rest of the nation.
Yeah, and like his advisors told him, if you be loyal to your people will be loyal to you.
Yeah.
But if in this case, if you're disloyal to your people will be disloyal to you back, and that's what he learned.
So even like relating that to the topic of adulting, what do you think is something that we can learn from this?
To follow the advice of the mentors of people, especially you knew that they helped guide his father Solomon, who was wise and was this great king, and he knew that, and he still forsook them. He still did not listen. Instead, he listened to his peers that were with him since a young age, that were as young as he was, as unexperienced as he was, as unknowing as he was. So even though we are going into this life and we are beginning to call ourselves adults, going from young adults to more adults, we are still young. Like I said, we're only in our third cycle. We don't know everything. We can't possibly know and experience everything at this day and age. So therefore, it's so important to go to our parents, to our guardians, to our mentors, to our elders, to people in Israel, the older men and women, the wiser people that we have there available to us to ask for
and seek counsel.
Yeah, to ask questions of life and how to be and how to live.
Right.
And when you do, don't forsake them like Rehoboam did. Listen and take notes and try to apply it to your own life, because that's what they're there for.
Right. And I think at the same time, there's like a balance. Even when you talk about like the balance of kind of, yes, as a young person, yes, you're going to have that zeal. You're going to have that push to go out there, and kill it, basically. You're going to have that zeal to want to be able to be your own person and kind of take hold of your life. Yeah. And that is fair, and it makes 100% sense. Because you're supposed to feel that way. Without that zeal, Caleb and Joshua don't feel the way they do. Exactly. Without them feeling like, no, like we have. So that zeal is important, and that zeal is what pushes the nation forward. Yeah. And it's so important. But also at the same time, it's also important to understand, as you said, you don't know everything though. Yeah. So you cannot completely disregard the elders that have raised you and the people that took care of you and built this foundation that we have. So I think, once again, as a young person, there's the balance and understanding that balance, as far as the balance of having the zeal and the push to go do and accomplish and be great, and also balance that with understanding the counsel and the wisdom of our elders, and using that wisdom and applying that to the zeal is where you get an ultimate combination. Yeah, that's as you said, a toolkit of how to be and how to successfully adult.
Right, exactly. And in successful adulting, the toolkits, that's the tools that we have learned so far from Abraham, the taking a leap of faith, having to leave home to become who he becomes, from Abraham to Abraham, to go to Jacob, who also had to leave home. He came back, but he had to leave home in order to find his wife, in order to be protected from Esau, and also to build his own spiritual connection to the God of Israel. We have the parable, which is really what not to do, but from that we learn the importance of financial stability even, and the importance of maybe not leaving home too soon. And
also understanding that you do have a home.
Exactly. You have people to lean on, you have mentors, family, Israel. And then we learn from Caleb and Joshua that as a young person, we have agency, we have a voice, we have to be strong in our decisions and taking what we learned and applying that to our life as an adult, and being strong and having faith in the God of Israel. That's important, and that's what's going to get us through life as an adult. And from Rehoboam, we learned the importance of mentorship and the importance of listening to your elders, because you are young, and like I just said, although you have that zeal and that sense of agency, it's important, and that's what you're supposed to have, but it's also important to listen to your mentors and to be a little bit still moldable, because you don't know everything we don't know everything.
Right.
We learn that every day. We make mistakes. We fail. But it's important to have people around you that has your back, especially older people that have gone through this before. So that's the toolkit, all the tools that we've learned from all these people, all the knowledge that we have culminated today in reading about these people in the Bible and building our toolkit in order to, what's the word? To successfully adult.
Or to do adulting? That doesn't sound right. Do adulting.
No, to be an adult.
Right.
To transform from a young adult to adult.
Right.
Yes, and these are all things that even we're still learning. But again, it's so nice to just go back into these stories and pick and take the tools that we can learn from our ancestors and use them in our own lives. You know, because that's what it's here for.
That's what it's here for. That's why the Bible is not just, it's not here just to be a collection of history or a collection of stories, right? It uses so that we can apply it to be like, okay, you take what you read and you need to figure out, okay, how do we apply this to our lives,
exactly.
right? And I think in the Israelite nation, that's kind of what we focus on, right? That's why it's not just Israelite nation, it's Israelite nation history and culture, right? The culture is what drives your actions, right? The culture is what drives the family values that we have. And I think it's even important that, when you talk about Rise, right? Even like going through Rise as a youth, like we grew up in Rise kind of since we were born, really. We always were connected to Rise in some way. Whether we were the youngest, and I think right now we're probably in the middle.
But I remember even before we were in Rise, just seeing, because we used to be in the Northeast Branch in New Jersey, and seeing people like Imani and Ebony and Jeffrey and Art, just the older people that we had that were, I think, maybe 14, 15, maybe a little bit older, how they found value in Rise. And again, Rise is restoring Israelite self-awareness through education, and we definitely understood that through what we were seeing with our own young eyes before we even understood the concept of what they were learning. We saw how much they grew through Rise. So they had programs like,
it was all through application.
Exactly.
It's all through application in which we found ourselves learning, right? So yes, we did learn the stories growing up, but another big part of Israelite learning and Israelite culture is also application and being a part of things. And so growing up, as you said, watching our older peers partake in various activities and also watching our older peers kind of like be leaders helped us, you know, because those became our role models. And a lot of the programs I remember, like we used to go through, and we used to, whether it was public speaking programs, whether it was community events and being a part of like community,
that's a huge part of
community events and being a part of community outreach programs. Even things like poetry slams and talent shows,
the creative arts,
the creative aspect as well.
We did summer camps. We had
summer camps as well.
Seminars,
youth leadership camps. I still remember going to camps, and I still remember hosting like math and science camps back when I was very, very young. And so all of that was like very vital in kind of building the youth here in the nation.
And allowed us to see, again, the words of the Bible of this culture being put into action. And we had our youth as leaders, but we also had youth learning from our older generation, which was an important aspect for us to see as really young people. And even now at Rise, that's what it still is today, which is so what I love about this culture. Even throughout the Bible, there's a continuity in that, you know. And of course, there were even back then we saw the youth learned from the people, but they also gave back to the community in which we resided in. So the Northeast Branch, we had stuff like mentorship opportunities for people in our community. We did plays with them. I know we did, what was it called? We did something with how we were hired to help troubled kids in the community that we lived in Newark. So we were also a huge part of the community, but that's an important aspect of Rise is to help people that are like us, especially people that are just joining Israel, and to help the community in which we're in too, which I think is really nice to be able to actually apply what we learned from the older generation to the actual world.
And I think that's where the focus is on application. And like Rise is a good way for us as youth to kind of all come together as youth and understand the power that we have, but also be mentored by our elders to also guide us on this journey and even help us with those transitions, because the transition isn't easy, right? You need help, you need mentorship, you need guidance on that journey. So so that was definitely like really important as far as for the Israelite culture that we hold today.
And and even taking those aspects that we learned in Rise, and again, Rise does a really good job of incorporating culture and the Bible and Israel and our Israelite peers into application, like you said, and in our lives. But also you look at even appreciate more what it has done for us when you look at our peers who don't necessarily have the sort of programs or mentorship that
our
we
peers
have.
outside of
Israel.
outside of Israel,
who are
and
not
peers
a part
outside of Rise, who they didn't necessarily have those same opportunities, and they didn't have access to those kind of programs and access to the culture building that Israel and Rise curated in our lives. And so, you see how it has benefited us, and it's reflected not only in our personalities, but it's reflected in our work, the works of our hands, the fruit of our labor is blessed.
Even small things. Growing up, in high school we did college tours, and we always talked about the future. The future was always there, and we always had very bright futures ahead of us when we were younger, and even the simple thing as college tours and going on and exploring the world that we would somehow in the future inhabit, and even seeing our peers of the same age who didn't really focus on that, who were unprepared for college. Like, there's a huge comparison to be made, and where we see that Rise has been beneficial to us in our lives, and it still is benefiting people too, which is a really nice thing to see.
Right. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're interested, like, definitely contact Rise. Contact us. We're always here to be reached out to. So contact the nation, whether you're old or young, but you're interested, in being a participating member of this community and of this culture. You want to grow in this culture and understand what that application process looks like, and how not only can you serve this great God, but also how can you apply this culture for your own life to see it
for all phases
for your own benefit,
life, like
exactly. Because all those things come together, right? The God of Israel is here for us, just like we are here for Him. So we have to understand that relationship. Even if you are a Rise member or were a Rise member in the past, or tell us, in the comments, some stories that you have of Rise and how that affects you, and how the application of what you learned has benefited you in your own life, and kind of what Rise means to you too. So I'm looking at you Rise members there, but also Rise alum, people who have gone through Rise too, because you all want to learn from each other and share each other's story. So that was really important part of our own upbringing, and it's useful for us as we go into our adult lives to look back on our lives as Rise members, and look as we're still Rise members and see how that can benefit us still. And it's good to have a connection of peers that we were always in Israel, that we were always connected to, that we always learned from, and know that we were all going through this together too. It's very helpful. And even through Rise, we've connected a lot to a lot of other community organizations and even political figures. I remember even in the Northeast branch, we actually were able to be under, I believe it was the mayor at the time.
Cory Booker.
Cory Booker, actually was actually there with us, a part of some of the Raj programs, helping us out with that too. And then here in St. Louis, we've touched with some of the political leaders and community leaders here as well as the senator. And so, the impact that Rise has, it extends beyond just, in-house. It's really about growing us as a community to have power throughout the world, to have a voice, to have a voice in the world.
Give us agency.
Right, because, we need to let our light shine. The whole point of, this culture is not so that we just, as we know, not just to keep it in, we don't keep our light in the bush, right? We need to let our light shine. And so that's a very vital part of it as well. To kind of go out and have a voice and understand the power that you command as a Israelite person. And
that's why it's so important, again, to go back into the Bible. And even if you're scared, I know it's so scary to think that you have to become a little bit more independent, that you maybe have to leave home, that you have to...
It's not easy either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so scary. It's important to know that, like, again, you have other Rise members going through the same thing at the same time, which is so useful and helpful. But you can also go back into our own culture, our own ancestors' words, and look at the many examples that they provide for us about the right way to go forth and be an adult.
Yeah.
And it makes us so much more confident, and it lets our light shine in the world. People look at us and say, wow, you're so different. Wow, you're so like amazing. Where did you learn that? Where did you learn how to be an adult? And we can answer clearly and proudly. It was Rise, it was Israel, it was the Bible, like all these tools that we have.
People always say, "God, you're so amazing." People say it all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Love exactly. You're so amazing. You're so amazing. All right. So
if you enjoyed this lesson that we have today, please put 7s and thumbs up and fire signs in the group chat.
Fires and the
comments.
7s.
Exactly. Yep. And again, don't forget to tell us your story about how you have to transition between being a young adult and an adult, so we can all learn from each other and relate. And continue to grow and allow us even to grow as an adult.
Exactly. And write your age. No, I'm kidding. No, you don't have to do that unless you're proud of it. If you're proud of your age, go for it. But no, that's not important.
Yeah, no. What's important are our experiences that we can learn from each other.
Exactly. Our growth and our transitions. So if you appreciate and you feel like you've grown from this lesson here that we've spoken about, then please support, like, comment, subscribe. Here at the Israelite Nation, we value every single like, every single comment, every single subscription, donation,
everything,
any way in which you can give back to us as we try and give back to you guys. It is greatly appreciated.
Yes, and if you are new here, please don't forget to click the link in our bio to learn more about us.
And then share this with somebody, and then so that person to share it with somebody, and so that person to share it with somebody, and then so that person to share it with somebody.
Exactly. Spread the word.
Spread the word. Exactly.
All right. Thank you. And
thank you, guys.
Peace.
Have a blessed Friday night.
Yes.
Once again, my name is Esha Blair.
My name is Naomi Blair.
We are a St. Louis representation of the Israelite Nation and St. Louis representation of Rise Youth Group. So,
look in the sky.
That concludes our lesson for today.
You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. I can see it in your eyes. Know you look scared, baby, don't be scared, it's alright. Just look at the size. There's more of us than to be with them, so we all fight. Look at the clothes. A little bit something like a ghost, rockin' all white. More of us than to be with them, damn. Baby girl, you can be a friend. Come on, we gon' fight until the end. Baby, don't fall, don't bend. Put too much trouble on you. Hope one day you see it too. Got so much trouble on you. Hope one day we'll make the skies. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. I can see it in your eyes. Know you look scared, baby, don't be scared, it's alright. So look at the size. There's more of us than to be with them, so we all fight. Look at the clothes. Pull up with something like a ghost, rockin' all white. For let that be with us, more than let that be with us.